just watch a movie and then it was so bad that you just never go back to it again, only to discover it again years later and realize, wow, this thing was so bad that it became obscure to where you even forgot it existed for a long period of time? Well, that's the Catwoman movie to me. Me being a big DC fan, or just DC and Marvel, we'll say comic book fan in general, this is one of the few comic book movies from the DC universe that I forget even exist. I mean, the history of it is just so long and winded that this project took so long to get off the ground that when it did, it just didn't feel real. As, if you remember correctly, back in 1992, Batman Returns was released, and it saw Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman. And in 1993, Tim Burton was supposed to have a spin-off movie with Michelle Pfeiffer returning as Catwoman, and it was going to be the Catwoman movie. Now, I think this would have been a big risk back in the day for Tim Burton, only because female-led superhero movies were not really a thing back then. I mean, sure, you did have the Wonder Woman series that went with Linda Carter for a good 4 or 5 years or so in the 70s, but that was about it. If you wanted to make a superhero movie, it was Batman, Superman, and maybe those bad Incredible Hulk movies they made back in the day, but for the most part, nobody else was interested in anything at that point in time. Heck, I would even say that DC was still reigning over Marvel. This was before the Marvel Cinematic Universe and before they had all these movies out where people were like, what is this? Where DC was making kind of, I guess you can say, the higher budget movies and the better movies in this case, thanks to Batman and Batman Returns and the first 2 Superman movies. Like, everybody was just swarming more toward that. Multiple delays with this movie, though, and 28 different screenwriters later, we ended up getting the movie on July 19th of 2004 called Catwoman, which instead of Michelle Pfeiffer, she was replaced by Halle Berry. And the movie has nothing to do with the DC universe at all, other than, oh, it's using one of their superheroes. Like, literally, this movie is so confusing from start to finish that you're just left there wondering, like, going, like, is this a DC movie? Is this even, like, a Batman spinoff at all? Because we don't know where she's at, if she's in Gotham City or whatever. I mean, I guess you're supposed to assume, but the city that she lives in just looks way too clean to be Gotham City, if you know what I mean. And also, there's a minor change in this movie that really just gets on my nerves. So, when we think of Catwoman, we think of Selina Kyle. I mean, again, that is the character that Michelle Pfeiffer portrayed, and even in the 1966 Adam West Batman, there was 3 different actresses that played Catwoman, and even one of those actresses was a woman of color, and yet, throughout the whole entire series, her name remained Selina Kyle. They did not change it, and she never got her name changed in the comics. It's what it had been since her character was announced in 1940, that's what her name is. But with this, they decided that Catwoman was going to be Patience Phillips.
I can't believe you've done this.
And, like, look, it maybe could have worked if you did maybe something like, oh, this isn't Selina Kyle Catwoman. Selina Kyle is now retired, and she changed her name, so now that Patience Phillips has died and this cat has chosen her, she's the new Catwoman. They could have went with something like that, but no, this is supposed to be the Catwoman, like the one Catwoman that we supposedly know and love from this case. Like, it didn't make sense to me why they had to do that. One thing that did seem right was, you know, the story's easy to follow. Miss Phillips is working at this big, like, rated, I guess you can say, like, body and makeup company. Like, they make, like, body face products and all that stuff. You know, the type of stuff that, you know, some men and also women, you know, put on their face to make them look younger when they're older, just to, you know, maybe anti-acne stuff. She does art design there. And for Catwoman, you know, I guess you can say that makes sense in some way. I mean, she's always been a thing for beauty. I mean, she usually steals jewels all the time when she does do jewel thieving, and she does in this movie as well.
What a perfect idea.
Again, the story's just easy to follow, that the wife of the owner of this company is trying to get this product out because she's jealous that now that she's turned 40 and she's aging a little bit, that even her husband doesn't want her in the ads for this product. So to plot her revenge against the other younger, prettier models, she decides to make this little cream that you put on your face, and it's supposed to, like, just eat away at your face and just make you sick and look disgusting, apparently. Like, that's the whole thing. And of course, you know, Patience Phillips finds out about this, and then as she's trying to run out of the building where she overheard this stuff, she ends up, you know, dying. She was in the sewer, and there's something like that. It was like water, something to do with like water and sewer, and they filled the pipes up, and she went right to the edge and fell to her death. But of course these cats come in, they resurrect her, and another small detail in this movie that really gets on my nerves is she gets powers. Like, okay, maybe there's the thing about, okay, well, when you look at Selina Kyle, she does kind of get your technical 9 lives. I mean, they mention it in Tim Burtons Batman, how it's like, how have you not died? She's like, oh, well, the one where Max Schreck pushed me out of the window, that was 1 life. I still have 8 lives left. You know, they kind of point at that. She was also trained in gymnastics and combat, so she was also just really good at that too. But she never had, like, powers to where she can, like, leap from building to building with ease and this, that, and the other. But in this one, she can. And also what really gets on my nerves about Halle Berry's Catwoman over Michelle Pfeiffer's is Halle Berry's just acts like a cat because, you know, she was resurrected by cats. Whereas Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman kind of plays it off as like, oh, it's like a witty, funny thing, you know, when there was that one scene where she was trying to, I guess, convince the Penguin to let her join him, and she was just kind of sitting there like, quote-unquote, cleaning herself like a cat would. It was mostly to seduce Penguin into being like, you know what, okay, fine, but with Halle Berry, she's just like, doing cat things, and that's just where I was like, I don't think that that's how that really ever worked. Like, she's not part cat, she's just a human who dresses up like a cat because, 1, she got resurrected by cats, and 2, she's mainly a cat burglar, so it makes sense. That's the one thing about Anne Hathaway's Catwoman in The Dark Knight Rises that I liked, was that they played it off of, she's a cat burglar, and that's where she gets the whole Catwoman thing from. She's not necessarily like this lonely cat lady, this, that, and the other. And yeah, for the most part, it's not that long of a movie. It's under 2 hours. It's one of DC's shorter movies, but the plot's all over the place. The special effects are weird, and for a soundtrack that features mostly like R&B music from the early 2000s, a very outdated soundtrack, we also get Hoobastank's Same Direction as the song, where she wants to tell her neighbors to shut up so she can sleep, and it's just blasting them. Like, it's a really weird song to have like mashed in between all these R&B songs, but hey, you know what? In 2004, Hoobastank's album The Reason was out. It was popping, and I guess that was the one song they could be like, oh, what would a bunch of frat boys be listening to in 2004 during a party? Probably that, and that's where they got that idea.
What'd you say? Is the music still too loud?
I can't believe you've done this.
Sure, there's some good elements. Like I said, separating it from a lot of the other DC movies, you know, that's fine. If you wanted to make it its own thing, then that's cool, but straying too far away from it, I think, was the main problem here. I mean, this thing I mentioned did go through 28 different screenwriters, and you mean to tell me that this was the best script that you could come up with? Like, if you would have kept her name Selina Kyle, you would have kept her in Gotham City, and you would have at least saw tinges of maybe Bruce Wayne. I think we may be able to go somewhere, but like, Bruce Wayne's never mentioned. It's never mentioned where she is that she lives in. And there's just a bunch of these like billionaires just walking around fine, and there's not really that much crime in this city to begin with. It's weird how they plotted it all. Now, one thing it could say, for a longest time, it was the highest grossing female-led superhero movie at $82.1 million, which in hindsight wouldn't sound bad. But when you look at its $100 million budget, you realize, oh, that's not good, is it? Because as high anticipated as this movie was, the epic failure of it just kind of like, I don't know, killed the hype. And I mean, sure, it did make more than that crappy Elektra movie with Jennifer Gardner, which I guess I can make a video on that, where the budget was between 43 and 65 million, and the movie only made 57 million, so it either lost money or gained a little bit of money, but not much for it to say it was a success. Catwoman, it was just like, I think maybe what happened was maybe for the first week it was doing fine in the box office, and then people saw it and they were like, oh, don't go see it, and more people were hesitant to see it. Again, I don't know. I just remember overall we didn't have a Blockbuster here. We had a Hollywood Video, And for the most part, a lot of the time, my dad and I, or my dad, mom, and I, we'd all go to Hollywood Video and pick out a movie, and I picked this movie out because I was like, you know what, I might as well give it a shot. And when I rented it, and the first time I watched it, even me at about 6 or 7 years old, I was like, this is dookie. Like, I didn't know what even to think about it then, and even going back and watching it now on HBO Max, I was like, you know, it's not as bad as I thought it once was, but like, what even were they going for here? Like, were they trying to start their own cinematic universe with something else? Because this had nothing to do with anything DC related other than, oh, this is Catwoman, and that's basically about it. You're probably wondering, well, what about these other female superhero movies that have come out? I mean, when you look at Catwoman and then Elektra coming out in back-to-back years, kind of tanking like they did, what have others done? Well, let's just say in 2017, when Wonder Woman was released, it, I think, brought back most of what we were looking for when it came to wanting to see a superhero movie at the box office. As with a budget of 120 to 150 million, Wonder Woman grossed 822.3 million at the box office. Now that's a hit. That is a definite hit. They made almost 3 times the amount of money that they wanted to make, if my math is correct. Heck, even a movie like this surprised me. Captain Marvel. Say what you want about it. Very, like, mixed reviews and whatever going on here. I saw it. It's okay. It's not one of Marvel's worst movies, but it's also not one of their best. Had a $152 to $175 million budget. Can you guess how much it made at the box office? $1.128 billion. This movie made more than Wonder Woman. Now granted, I think it has a lot to do with Disney owning Marvel, so maybe Captain Marvel had a little bit more of a push because of that. But Wonder Woman was highly anticipated for the fact that since Linda Carter, the only time we had seen Wonder Woman anywhere was cartoons, and she appeared on Batman vs. Superman to set up this movie, but even that didn't crack $1 billion at the box office. And let's look at another movie that came out a couple years ago at this point, which would be Birds of Prey. Now, this came out in January 25th of 2020, or I'm sorry, no, that's when it premiered in Mexico City. This came out February 7th of 2020. So you can kind of say that maybe it's unfair for this movie to look at the budget compared to box office, because around that time in February is when coronavirus started spreading around the world, especially in the US, to where theaters were closing down, this, that, and the other. But even at that, with an $82 to $100 million budget, which was one of the more lower budget DC movies, it still made $201.9 million at the box office, which sure didn't meet its $250 to $300 million that they were hoping for, but at least it made 2 times more than what their budget was, despite, again, the movie having to deal with the pandemic and people not going to movie theaters really anytime after that. How do I put this? I don't want to say that Catwoman paved the way. I really think that Catwoman and Elektra made people hesitant to put this female lead superhero character into perspective, because I think a lot of people, or they thought a lot of people, just wouldn't care. But Catwoman's main problem, for the most part, was its audience. So you'd think, oh, a strong female superhero character, they're going to try to appeal to, you know, young women and little girls and all that kind of stuff, to show you, like, hey, you want to be a superhero, or you think you can be a superhero, go and be a superhero. Like, anybody can do it. It's okay, it's fine. But it's so sexualized that it kind of aims more toward the men who want to see it, because it's this, you know, pretty woman who's kind of just going around in this tight leather outfit, like skimpy outfit, just kind of like strutting her stuff. It's just so, they knew their intentions when they were doing that. They could have just went with, you know, the Stitches look that Michelle Pfeiffer had going for her, where she's not really showing anything, but instead, of course, they're like, oh, it's Halle Berry, let's go for the sex appeal, and then you completely lost the original audience that you were trying to gain from this. Like, it was really, really confusing. And another thing to top things off was that this got a video game adaptation. Now, they did this a lot back in the day. I mean, Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man 2, they had video games. And heck, even Batman and Robin had its own video game adaptation, which was worse than probably the movie. And by the way, this movie, Catwoman, is rated lower on Rotten Tomatoes than Batman and Robin. Batman and Robin has an 11% on Rotten Tomatoes. This movie has a 9, making it the lowest rated DC movie ever.
I hate when people talk during the movie.
The video game, which pretty much follows the same plot that the movie does, basically just kind of goes through, you do your thing, and it shows some extra stuff that maybe wasn't in the movie. But the reviews for this, I mean, apart from a C-, a 6.5, a 6.3, and a 6.5, these reviews are just not great for it. I mean, some would even say that the game is worse than the movie, which again, I don't know how you can do that, but you know, I mean, it was bound to fail. This movie was so bad that it won 4 Razzie Awards, including Halle Berry for Worst Lead Actress. Now, I will give her this. She went to the Razzie Awards, accepted her award, while she was holding her Oscar for a movie that she won a couple of years ago. I can't remember what movie it was for, but she actually said in her speech, semi-sarcastically, she described the film as a piece of shit, god-awful movie. So, even she can be like, you know, let's just not talk about this anymore. And to this day, it's one of those movies that is revered as probably being one of the worst, if not the worst superhero movies ever. And of course, it had to come from the DC universe, but in the end, would you really still call this a DC movie? They did too much, in my opinion. They could have done some things and gone along with what they were doing had they had done it right, and then, again, not tried to, like, do all these different things that, like, make us go, is this a DC movie, or is this just, like, it felt like a fan-made movie, like a movie a fan wanted to see, they had a low budget, and they made it, and boom, that was, like, how it happened. Like, it was all just done with this super low budget, and in the end it wasn't anything we were supposed to take seriously. But they wanted us to take this seriously, and back in 2004, a $100 million budget is definitely a high budget here, and it just did not perform well. Also, Alex Borstein is in this movie, which, I mean, geez, after Mad TV and Family Guy, I don't really think you can go to any more downhill than this movie, because this is when she was at her peak. She was still doing Mad TV, she was still doing Family Guy, and this is when Family Guy was still at its peak before taking a tumble like 3 or 4 years later. It really makes you wonder what this one was trying to do, because it could have tried to jump in that Christopher Nolan universe. I mean, around this time, that Batman movie had to be in production. Batman Begins had to be, like, greenlit, and they were going and filming. They could have said, hey, can your Catwoman movie kind of like tease that, oh, Batman Begins is coming, and maybe tease that they're in the same universe? But they just completely did this thing where it was like makeup artist and old and Halle Berry's butt. Like, it was just like, okay, pander much? And that's basically where it's been left off, just kind of like in the sense of it's there, but nobody really knows it's there anymore. Like, at least with other like bad DC and Marvel movies like Punisher, you got Green Lantern, Steel, all that kind of stuff, you know they're there and they exist, and you know what? Some of them you're even willing to watch again just because it's so cheesy that you just want a good laugh. I mean, I will sit down and watch Batman and Robin again before I even go and think about watching the Catwoman movie. The characters, too. None of these characters, even Halle Berry's Catwoman, had no good character arc. Like, there wasn't any, like, improvement from these characters throughout. They just kind of, like, showed up, and then that's what you were getting from them the rest of the movie. I mean, yeah, guess you can say Patience Phillips' arc to being Patience to Catwoman changes a little bit differently. But in the end, it's just kind of like the same thing. It's just, it kind of reminds me a lot of like Two-Face with the multiple personality, how he had that second personality, like he was able to control it and it was deep down inside him. Well, that's kind of how they make this one too, with this Catwoman, where there's the Patience Phillips version of her, and then she just kind of snaps into like this trance where she's Catwoman and she doesn't really know what happened the next morning when she gets up and all that stuff, and this Catwoman persona kind of overtakes her when really that's never really what happens. She doesn't really have that Two-Face persona going on, or never really did. It's more just like, she's Selena Kyle, but she's just more pissed off now, and she just wants revenge on the people she wants revenge against, and she might do some good things here and there, and that's that with that. So, you can tell me in the comments below, what did you think of the Catwoman movie? What are things about it that you like? Maybe there's things from that movie that you enjoy that, you know, maybe you can point out to me. Maybe you can be like, oh, well, there's this enjoyable part, because in the end, that just jumped all over the place, and I can't get down with it. I really can't. But also, tell me what you think went wrong with this movie. Like, for a movie that was 12, 11 years in development, how did it fail this much despite being rewritten 28 times? And obviously director was changed and actress was changed. Like, how did it fail this much to do what it wanted to do when it was all said and done? But That's it for me. Stay safe out there. Wear your mask, get vaccinated, and I will catch you all in the next one.
Meow.